welcome back to Game Talk from the Bench. I'm your host, Drew Barreto. Today I'm here with my guest, my uncle, Joe. Um, my co-host, he couldn't make it today. He had a long weekend, and you know, after some time, you gotta give him some days off. So he's got the episode off. But today we are talking NFL. We got extensions. We got some huge news to the Packers that came out today, as we're recording. In the NBA. Our team has already moved on to the finals, and we have a great series on our hand at deck in the West. So we'll talk about that. We'll give you a weekly standings update in the MLB as well as some news in the MLB. We got a no-hitter, but it's not the one we were quite looking for. And finally, ending us off in Formula One, I will be talking about the Canadian Grand Prix. But to start us off, in the NFL, this happened a little at the end of last week, a couple days after we recorded our last episode. But Lions, Lions and linebacker Jack Campbell are agreeing to new 4-year deal that is up to 81 million, with the 51.5 million guaranteed. It's now a 20 million and a quarter million salary over the extension is second among off-ball linebackers, trailing only San Francisco's Fred Warner, who's at 21 million a year, and is just in front of Ravens' Roquan Smith. He's the former 18th pick in the 2023 draft. He's become a staple in the middle of the line's defense. In 3 full seasons, he's generated 402 tackles, 8.5 sacks, 19 TFLs, 3 forced fumbles, and 13 QB hits. 2025, he was great. He was a Pro Bowl nod, and he was a first-team All-Pro. And so for the Lions, who were in the NFC Championship not too long ago, fell short to the Niners. Had a down year last year. We're not that great. Missed the playoffs. Was just a really strange year for the Lions. You know, they're gonna try to keep their young bucks together, right? Jahmyr Gibbs, now Jack Campbell. They're just big extension for the linebacker. Obviously, like I said, Lions, they have been a more relevant team as of recent. Jack Campbell's still a name I'm still getting used to, and that's just the new generation of players coming into the league.
Yeah, it's a great extension for the Jack Campbell and the Lions. The stats obviously are all there. Why wouldn't you give this guy that? I mean, the money's only behind Fred Warner. I mean, Fred Warner. He's a great player. So for the Lions to do that, it's some that it was a smart move. Sign him now. Before you even get to that contract, and you're disputing everything, and just pay the man. He deserves it. He earned it. He's doing good. And yeah, the Lions had a bad year last year, but they're also in a tough division with the Vikings, the Bears, and the Packers. So it's a tough division. So it's hard to always be on top. But you know what? I see them coming back next year, and never know, they could win the division. So.
Yeah, no, and that's a great point that you made. You know, he didn't reset the linebacker market, right? He stayed below Fred Warner's 21 million. Because obviously, it's tough when players at positions they reset the market and they raise the price. Because it raises the price on everyone. But yeah, obviously, Campbell, great defender. Don't know if he's as good as Fred Warner, so I'm glad he's like I said, he's not getting paid higher than Warner. Obviously, Warner I think is for when healthy, the best linebacker in the league. Roquan Smith, who's right behind Campbell now contract wise, he's also one of the best linebackers out there. So I think Jack Campbell, like you said, he proved it, he earned it. Lions draft him, and it's only right you reward your guys for playing well. More extensions though. The MVP Matthew Stafford, he's agreeing to a 1-year, $55 million contract extension. It could be worth up to 60 million with incentives. He's the 38-year-old is now under contract for the next 2 years. We know, I talked about it with my co-host. We know they drafted Ty Simpson with the 13th pick in the draft this year. I thought it was a little bit of a head scratcher just because Stafford's coming off the MVP year, and he still has some time left in the league. And obviously, next year's draft class is deep, deep in quarterbacks. And so my personal thought was, hey, they could get a quarterback there and maybe the later round, and use that 13th overall pick, and not this past year or this past draft on something because like I said, they were a couple plays away from the Super Bowl this past year, and they could have definitely beat New England. But the MVP, he's gonna stick around for another 2 years. So good news for the Rams, bad news for your Niners.
Hmm. Yeah, it's bad news, but you know what? He's 38 years old, like you said. I thought Ty Simpson was a great pick at 13. He's a great player. He played good in college, so you know what? I would have took him too. Matt, like I said, Matt Stafford's 38 years old. He could get hurt at any point. Any time now. I mean, and if he plays out 2 years, you know what? Ty Simpson sits right behind him, and he learns from Matt Stafford. Who's a probably a Hall of Fame quarterback. So you know what? Why not learn behind him? And I thought it was a great pick. Like you said, next year's draft is going to be stacked quarterbacks, but you got you don't know where you're going to be sitting next year. So doesn't mean you're going to get a hold of one of those quarterbacks, especially a top tier quarterback. And Ty Simpson is a top tier quarterback, so I like the signing. I like the draft pick. So I think the Rams, like you said, I'm a little upset that the Rams did good on that.
Yeah, you said Matt Stafford's probably a Hall of Famer, and I'm gonna restate that he is a Hall of Fame quarterback. For the longest time, being with the Lions, he had such good stats, but nothing, no wins to prove anything. Obviously, he comes to LA, wins the Super Bowl, I believe in his first year, and now he wins the MVP. And I think right there, with he's got the accolades now, um, and he's got the stats. Yeah, he's the MVP quarterback, but yeah, they're just trying to do the Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers thing, the Rodgers, Brett Favre, scenario where they just draft this quarterback in the first round, let him sit behind the future Hall of Famer, and hopefully he turns to their next, quarterback. And so we'll see how that works out for them. But yeah, Rams in a tough division. We'll see how they do next year against obviously the defending champs and the Niners, who are obviously good team when fully healthy. And then Cardinals they're the Cardinals. They'll probably be last in the division, but they like to make things interesting when it comes to those division games. But moving on to our next extension that happened today as well. Derwin James and the Chargers agreed to a 3-year, $75.6 million contract extension. Um, it's an average salary of 25.2 million a year, and it just puts him ahead of Kyle Hamilton, who is at 25.1 million per year. And so it makes him the highest paid safety in the league, you know, per year. And the 29-year-old, he was heading to the final year of his contract. He's a five-time Pro Bowler, first round pick in 2018, and I mean, he's the heart of that defense. I mean, he's just like a missile coming from that safety position, and it's well deserved. He's just phenomenal. As a Raiders fan, he's incredible back there in that defense. That you know it was pretty solid last year, but he's always been the staple of that defense, and he's here to stay. And like I said, as a Raider fan, don't like to see it, but great competitor to play against.
Yeah, that's a great signing. I have to agree on that one. It's definitely a great signing. Derwin James has definitely earned it. He's earned a lot of respect in that league. He's a great talented player. He works hard. He plays that. He comes down and plays on the line. Right there where he blitzes a lot. He can play the linebacker position when they need him as a nickel or a dime package. So he's a great he's all around. He's a great talented safety. It's a great signing. Chargers. They need to do that for him. You don't want to, like I said, go on the contract year. Like I said with Stafford. Go in that contract year, and just it's good that they signed him, and it's too bad for your Raiders because now you got to deal with him for another 3 or 4 years. So but you know what? It's a good signing. I like it. Chargers made a move, and that was a good move. And we'll see what happens. But he's the highest paid safety now, I believe. Right?
Yes, he is annually at least. But yeah, because like he just got ahead of Kyle Hamilton on money per year, and Kyle Hamilton, we know he ever since he's gotten drafted, he's just been phenomenal. Um, and so, Derwin James, he's been doing this for some time, gets himself a nice extension to stay with the team that drafted him. And so, I always love seeing, teams that, when they draft a player, they especially when they perform, they get rewarded and they stay with the team. 'Cause that's what you want. When you want to win a Super Bowl, you want to win it with the team that drafted you. Doesn't happen all too often, but when it does, it makes it even more special. But moving on to our last NFL news, it's huge and it involves the Packers. running back Josh Jacobs was arrested today, Tuesday, May 26th, on accounts of felony strangulation, in addition to a misdemeanor counts of assault, criminal damage to property, disorderly conduct, and intimidation of a victim. And so big. I mean, this is huge news. Jacobs 28, probably top 10, maybe top 5 back in the league. Um, the Packers, star running back. He, I don't know what's going to happen. These are very serious um things that he's got arrested for, and we've seen guys like Rashi Rice. He got a 6 game suspension for his I forgot what he had, his misdemeanor, or his, yeah, his charge that he was arrested on. He got a 6 game suspension. We've seen guys get suspended for a year on drugs. And so with Jacobs, I mean, it could be a scenario where he might not play at all. He might not be on the team. But these are serious issue, and the Packers are probably stressing as of right now.
Yeah, the Packers are probably definitely stressing. I don't think. I mean, this is a serious, situation. These are serious allegations, and I mean, it happened. So it's something's gonna happen to him from possibly a legal stance, and then from the NFL. I don't know how much he'll get suspended for, how long. My guess would be a 6 game suspension. Um, I don't see it any longer, but I could be wrong. Sometimes NFL doesn't, I feel, doesn't punish players like they should. Like I said, they punish players for certain things that they shouldn't. As long as, I mean, like like I said, for types of drugs, you say they get suspended for a year, but something like that. It depends what kind of drugs. I understand. But you know what? I mean, they know the drugs are around, but you know what? This is very, very, very serious. So he could get a year. He could get a year. I don't know what he's gonna get. I just I don't see. I just don't think the NFL is gonna suspend him that long. I feel it's gonna be a 6 game suspension. So the Packers will stress for those 6 games because he's a big piece in that puzzle over there. So for replacing a Jacobs, it ain't gonna be easy. I tell you that much. So we'll see what happens over there in Green Bay.
Yeah, no, the Raiders saw how it was not easy to replace Jacobs in the 1 year that they didn't have him. Unfortunately, the Raiders were able to get Ashton Jeanty, but yeah, no, this is gonna be an interesting situation as we learn more. Like I said, the news just broke today, so not much that we know of. But yeah, we'll keep you guys updated along as the year goes on. But that is all we have for the NFL. Moving on to the NBA, we're gonna start off in the Eastern Conference. It was Knicks Cavs, right? We talked about the Cavs blowing a 22-point lead in Game One of the Eastern Conference Finals, and after that loss, they couldn't recover for a minute. Knicks ended up sweeping the Cavs, and my oh my, at a point I thought the Eastern Conference was finally competitive. It's just showing me again that it's not, and maybe never will. Last year it was a little bit competitive, but I mean, yeah, Knicks have just back-to-back sweeps. Haven't really faced much competition at all. They've had an insane amount of rest. They're going to get a lot of rest heading to the finals. But I mean, as for the Cavs, I mean, this is just it's bad. James Harden, who they traded for, failure, failure of a trade. 12 points in the elimination game. I mean, that's just unbelievable. And I'm pretty sure prior games to that wasn't doing much. He had 19 in game three. I mean, I know he's not in his prime. I know he's not what he used to be. But this used to be a guy and I was thinking about it the other week too. I was like, what happened to James Harden? What happened to the guy on the Rockets that was an MVP? Was he an MVP? I believe so. That was an MVP that was dropping 30 a game, that was going toe to toe with the Kevin Durant Golden State Warriors. I mean, what happened to that guy? And I'm looking at him. I was looking at him in the Cavs jersey. I'm like, he looks like a washed player, and it kind of just it showed. I mean, he doesn't, have his sidestep, step back three that he used to have. I mean, like I said, the guy used to be averaging 30 points, and now, come playoff time, he's barely getting 20, if that. And so, the Cavs, team that was the one seed, I want to say last year, if I'm not mistaken. Um, just come playoff time, they keep falling short. And to me, they're starting to look like the Knicks, but the Knicks finally got there now. Um, Cavs, man, they got to figure something out. I mean, you got Donovan Mitchell, you got Jared Allen, you got Evan Mobley, who's the Defensive Player of the Year. Just don't know if they would have been better off with Darius Garland, but I don't think trading for James Harden was their answer.
Well, first off, yeah, let's congratulate the New York Knicks. They deserve to be where they're at. I agree with you. They did have not seen a top tier team. Like you said, it would have been nice if the Celtics would have won, but they didn't. So, that's part of the game. Like you said, they beat the Hawks, beat the Cavs right now. So I mean, they're on an 8-game winning streak. So, it's part of the game. And, congratulating New York. They traded for all five, I believe all five of their starters, if I'm correct.
Yeah, no, they didn't trade for all of them. Jalen Brunson was a free agent signing, but they are a built. Oh no, they are a bought, not built team. Um, and so they bought basically the whole team. But there's nothing wrong with that, right? They cost a lot to get Mikal Bridges. They're trying to go all in. When you're going all in, you got to go all in, and so that's what they've been trying to do. Hold on, I go on. Um, and so yeah, I mean, first time since '99 they're back in the finals. The city of New York is going crazy. I know you're not on social media, but all the posts I see on TikTok and stuff, they're the funniest things ever. The fans in New York going crazy. Even the mayors out there. I mean, city of New York might go up, might blow up if uh if they win the finals. I'm just gonna keep it real. The city of New York is going crazy for this Knicks team, and they're in the finals. Like I said, if they win or lose, New York might be in some serious trouble. But yeah, no, they like you said, they haven't really played much competition. Celtics lost to the 76ers. Pistons lost to the Cavs. And so they kind of just been steamrolling teams. Compared to the teams that we got going in the West, which we'll talk about right now, Um, oh my goodness. Sorry, I just checked up on the game. We're in game five of the Spurs Thunder series. Thunder were just up 20 points. It is now an 8-point game in the third quarter. But yeah, in the West, you've had the Spurs had to play, an underrated Blazers team. Then they played in the second round. Then they played Minnesota, who was a little banged up, but still a good team. Took them. The Thunder haven't really played anyone really seriously. They played the Thunder. Now they played the Suns round one, and they played the Lakers. That was double sweeps. But now the Thunder are facing some serious problems in the Spurs. Had a 2-1 lead over the Spurs, and then Wembanyama showed up in Game 4 to force a series tied at Game 5. I mean, Wemby's been playing phenomenal for them. Like I said, right now, 8-point game. Spurs were just down 20. Still a lot of time left. It's only like I said, 5 minutes left in the third quarter. But if I'm New York, you're getting a lot of rest. These two teams are probably going to go to a Game 7. Um, I think either team's a tough matchup. However, for me personally, I don't like OKC. I don't like the way Shea plays. I've already gotten a post out on how the refs are officiating that series. So if the Thunder go on to face the Knicks in the finals, I am a New York Knicks fan. But if the Spurs are going, I'm gonna have to go with the Spurs because that's just been a team I've been rooting for all year because I just young core, they've been built, they weren't bought. So it'd be cool if the Spurs go and they play they're the built team. They built the whole team and they played the Knicks who bought the whole team. So that'd be a cool matchup to see.
Yeah, I mean the Spurs Knicks would be a cool matchup, and it'd be a rematch of the 1999 finals. The Spurs won that one. Also, a team back then that was kind of not bought by the Knicks, but they were traded for some players back then. But you know what? I don't. I see OKC winning in 7. Um, I think that the Knicks, with well rested, possibly might steal game one against OKC. After that, I think it's going to go six, and I think OKC is going to win it. That's just how I feel, and I mean they are a young team as well. They were put together. I don't think they bought a lot of pieces there. Also on OKC, so it's a young team, and this series is going to go 7 games. Like I said, it's going to go all the way down to the wire. So it's going to be they're going to bang each other up really bad, but and that's what's going to help the Knicks. So I think the Knicks could steal game one. Even if the Spurs go, I could see the Spurs or the Knicks beating the Spurs in game one, just because they're going to be well rested. And but I just feel OKC. Like I said, I'm gonna stay with it and be back-to-back champions again.
So you got them going back to back. Me, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I'm not, said it before. Shea, he's a phenomenal player, but the way he plays basketball is just, it's not enjoyable to watch. I know Jalen Brunson sometimes is the same way, but he's not as bad as Shea. So that's why I don't want to see it. I don't want to see the Thunder win. They got their one. They were lucky enough that Halliburton's Achilles decided to give up on him. But yeah, I'm hoping the Spurs pull it out. Like I said, if it's the Thunder going, I'm going for the Knicks. If it's the Spurs going, I'm going for San Antonio. But yeah, I mean it's gonna be interesting. Like I said, it's going to go. It's most likely going to go 7 games. It's currently an 11-point game. OKC is up. We'll keep you guys updated throughout the episode to see where that game stands. But moving on to the MLB. It's our weekly standings update. Um, in the AL East, I've said it. I think every week so far. Rays, they still lead the division. They're 34-18. They've been just incredible. Followed by the Yankees, who are 32-22, and after that, it's a big drop off to the Blue Jays, who are 25-29. Guardians lead the AL Central. They are 32-25, followed by the White Sox, who are above 500 team at 27-26. Tigers are at the bottom of that division, as after losing 2 weeks school ball, it's kind of tough to win games when you're without the back-to-back Cy Young winner. In the AL West, Athletics, they still lead the division at 27-27. Behind them is the Mariners, Rangers, Astros, and then Angels. In the National League, Braves, best record in baseball at 36-18. Followed by the Nationals, who are 29-17, and then the Phillies, who have been playing a lot better at 27-27. In the NL Central, Brewers are 31-20. Following behind them is the Cardinals, and then the NL West is the Dodgers at 34-20. They've created some separation from the Padres, who are 31-22. And actually, a couple of games behind them is the Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks have been a sneaky team. They're 29-24. So that's your standings updates. As of news-wise, we got a no-hitter. But it wasn't the no-hitter we're exactly looking for. We got a combined no-hitter yesterday, the 25th of May, by the Astros. It's the first no-hitter since 2024. It was by Tatsuro Imai, their Japanese pitcher that they signed this past offseason, Steven Okert, and Limber Santa, who made his MLB debut. On Memorial Day, they threw 9 no-hit innings against the Rangers, and like I said, first no-hitter since 2024. But is it a real no-hitter? That's the conversation people are having.
Yes, it is a real no hitter. The other team did not get no hits, so I don't care who you put in there. If you want to say that, oh, it's not a real no hitter, well, you're wrong. The guy is his debut. What a great debut to have, and you're part of a no hitter. So yes, it is. I feel it is a real no hitter, because like I said, you gotta swing the bat. You gotta pitch the ball, and we don't know what's gonna happen sometimes. That no hitter could have been broken just by taking that pitcher out. Sometimes that's usually what happens. So for those other pitchers, there's a lot more pressure on them to be put, because they gotta excel now even more, because now the pressure's on them, because the starting pitcher did one great of a job to get them where they're at with their no hitter. So I do agree, it is a real no hitter. If you look on the hits, it says 0. So yes, for me, it's a real no hitter.
Now, what do you think? Do you think a combined no hitter is harder than just like a starting pitcher going all full nine, or what do you think's harder?
Um, it's hard to argue that. I think they're both equally hard. Because after 7 innings of no hitting with the starting pitcher and you're going back in the eighth, it's hard, because all the pressure's on. It's a no hitter. There's there's fans out there yelling, saying their stats because the players in the dugout they ain't talking to you. You really, they're kind of just letting you do your thing, letting you rest your arm, staying away from you because they don't want to jinx you or do anything to mess up the no hitter. So, we know the players and they all stay away from them. So but a combined one, it is tough too, because like I said, you throw 7, no shit, no hitter, and then all of a sudden, boom, now the new guy comes in, pitches the 8th inning, and now okay, he's out now, so now no pressure on him. But now on the 9th inning, there's a lot of pressure on the other guy to get those last 3 outs, and we're talking about the Major League Baseball, and no matter what team is batting, it's hard to get a no hit. So it's for me, it's equally it's tough, whether it's the starting pitcher or a combined.
Yeah, I think I'm a favor a little bit more of the starting pitcher because I think that's just tougher. They got to go all nine. No hits, but this one was, it's impressive. Imai, he's a rookie in the MLB. Obviously not. He obviously played a bunch of years in Japan, but this is his first year in the MLB. He went 6 scoreless, and then Steven Oker, he's been a veteran reliever. He went a 7th scoreless, and then the guy who made his debut, Limber Santa, he went 2 scoreless in the 8th and the 9th inning to complete that no hitter. So that right there, it's pretty impressive. And last season, 2025 was the first season without a no hitter since 2005. So yes, we do have a no hitter this year in 2026. Like you said, it's still no hit for me though. I'm still waiting for that one starting pitcher to go all nine. Of no hit no hit baseball. But yeah, no, very impressive nonetheless. Astros, who are a struggling team, to be the ones to throw the combined no hitter, it's kind of ironic, but yeah, that happened the other day. Other news came out late last night by oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the reporter. Uh, I forget his name. He's just like the main guy too. But anyways, A's, they're calling up. They're one of their top prospects. 23-year-old Gage Jump. The left-handed pitcher. He's the number 7 left-handed pitching prospect in the game. Um, he's getting called up. He's actually making a start today. I think his game is currently on. Um, but the A's, are going full. It's currently 3-0. Seattle's winning, so that means he's giving up three earned runs. That's okay. He's still a rook. First game, but A's, they're going all in on the youth. They're having a couple of injured guys. They have a couple of vets in their lineup and in their rotation, but they're fully investing into the youth. We've seen them extend Jacob Wilson. Nick Kurtz has not extended yet just because we know he's going to get a monster contract. Brent Rooker, Lawrence Butler, Tyler Soderstrom, I believe, Shea Langoliers, all those guys have extensions. And, for a team moving to Vegas soon, I mean, like I said, they're currently leading the division. Um, will they be leading it after tonight? Maybe not. But they have a shot. They have a shot of maybe playing baseball in October. And so this A's team, for the first time I think since 2020, they could be back in the playoffs. And like I said, they're just fully going into the youth, and they're just trying to build something special for when they come to Vegas.
So the only reporter I can think that's on the top of my head is it Buster Only or
No, it's not. What's his name? Report.
that for a baseball that came to my mind.
Oh, Jeff Passan. Jeff Passan. Jeff
Oh,
Passan. Yeah,
okay.
he's the one that reported late last night.
Yeah, that's great for the A's. I mean, like they've done this before, so this isn't the first time. They don't have a market, so like Just like I'm shocked right now with the Rays over there in Tampa Bay. They're competing with the biggest market probably in baseball, the New York Yankees, and they're beating them. So you can't take anything away from the A's. I mean, they're just playing phenomenal baseball. Like you said, they got some veterans. They got a lot of young talent over there. So it's just great. That it's doing good, and like you said, it's a good thing for them because they're going to be going into Vegas, and it'd be good for them to go into Vegas, have a nice young core. Hopefully most of them get signed by them. But if they're in Vegas, there'll be a little bit bigger market. Probably have more people going. Vegas is a interesting market, but there's a lot of people in Vegas that live in Vegas, so I'm sure a lot of those people will definitely get season tickets over there. But there, every weekend, there's like I said, there's people that are going to go out there and just enjoy Vegas. And if they're there, and if their team's there, they're going to want to go and see their team play against the A's. And like I said, the A's, they've been showing up. That's great. That's great for them. And right now it's great for Sacramento. So all I could say is, it's good for them.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like you said, Vegas has become a hot spot for the sports. Obviously, the Aces, their championships, they got championships there. Raiders have been not winning there, but they still bring a lot of people to the town. Their team, I know their hockey team is currently up 3-0 on the Colorado Avalanche. And they've won the Stanley Cup not too long ago. And Vegas is a spot where they're eyeing a future potential NBA expansion team. And so, like we mentioned, um, baseball coming to Vegas is just Vegas is becoming such a hot spot right now, and it's Vegas is not a bad vacation spot. I've been there a couple times myself. It's pretty nice. It's enjoyable. Once like I said, the A's moved to Vegas and they got this young team that's hopefully competing. Vegas can be popping. So it's
Yeah,
gonna be
especially
a
mention the hockey team real quick, but they are beating a very, very good, talented Colorado Avalanche team. So I think it's going to be them and the Canes going the championship. And you know what, Vegas, they win the championship over there in NHL. Like you said, it's Vegas. You got the Raiders. It's just going to push for them to get an expansion team, like you said. I agree with you.
yeah, and they got the space. They put everything on the strip of Vegas, and everything the strip's already cool. You add a couple sports teams to it, and it makes it even better.
Right.
Um, But yeah, so that is that. Last thing in the MLB, Logan Webb, Giants starting pitcher, he's expected to be activated this Friday. More news. Not more news, but don't know if you're gonna like this talk, but Kyle Harrison, we all know former Giants pitcher, now as a Brewer, was one of the main deals, one of the main players in the Rafael Devers trade. Was traded to the Red Sox, was in AAA to start his career with in Boston. Then he ended the year in the starting rotation. Gets dealt to the Brewers for I believe Caleb Durbin, and since being in Milwaukee, he's been pitching phenomenally. I believe he's at a 1.77 ERA. Has finally found his stride. And so, you know, a lot of people are saying, this was a big loss for the Giants, and which it is, but they did get Rafael Devers in return. Obviously, Devers started to play a lot more better than he did to start the season. But to me, this is a bigger loss for the Boston Red Sox. Red Sox who went out and signed Ranger Suarez, could have potentially saved this money. I know, you don't know what you're gonna get out of a player, but with what Harrison is showing, it's kind of what he showed when he first debuted with the Giants. High 90s fastball, getting swing and miss, and he was like that to start his career in San Fran. Then he we noticed a little bit of an arm angle change, and then his velo dropped a lot. Then he struggled. But now he's got his arm angle back. He's throwing high 90s, and he's looking very good for those Milwaukee Brewers.
Yeah, I mean, he was good in San Francisco, and I liked him there. And just like you said, we got a great talent in return with Devers. Um, you know, uh, like you said, it was more of a big loss for the Red Sox. The Red Sox had, they just didn't use them right. They just needed to wait and let him, do what he does and do his thing, and they didn't let him. So they traded him for a player. Who they trade him for again?
Caleb Durbin, third baseman.
Yeah, he's good too. He's a solid third baseman. I don't know how he's playing right now, but he's definitely.
I believe he's been struggling this year for
Yeah.
the Red Sox.
So that obviously is a great trade for Milwaukee. The Giants just they let him go. I mean, they didn't let him go. Like I said, they definitely got something in return, and and this year right now Devers is playing better now, so it's good that see Devers playing better. So that you just didn't trade away a pitcher that you drafted for nothing. So you know what? At least we could say that we got Devers. So and like you said, just Giants just aren't playing good right now. I mean, there's nothing I can say. I mean, I was watching them and they couldn't beat the D-backs, and that's why the D-backs are right where they are right now, behind close behind San Diego, because they beat the Giants, I believe, 5 out of 6 games recently. So when you win that much, against one team, especially your division rival, it happens. So
Yeah, and the Giants struggle. They're just it's been tough. Webb hasn't pitched all that great so far and hit the IL. Is expected to return. Devers, like you said, started off pretty slow. He's been getting back up. They've had injuries to Elliot Ramos and Jungkook Lee. Casey Schmidt, he's been probably their best hitter on the team. He's been great. They shipped Patrick Bailey. Matt Chapman and Willie Thomas have been really disappointments for the team. So yeah, the Giants, under Buster Posey, look to go all in last year, but this year so far they could be potential sellers at the deadline, but still a lot of season left to go. So we'll end up seeing. But yeah, Kyle Harrison, I think a change of scenery was just needed. Obviously the California kid went to De La Salle, drafted to the Giants. I think just had a lot of expectations for him in San Francisco and a lot of weight on him. He was underperforming a little bit. And like I say, he gets shipped, gets a fresh opportunity. Well, he got two new fresh opportunities, but a real fresh opportunity in Milwaukee. And yeah, he's not wasting it. And that Milwaukee sort of rotation is deadly. You got Harrison, who's been pitching great, and Mizorowski, who throws 103. And so Milwaukee, a good team. Like I believe they had the best record in baseball last year. Don't quote me on that. Um, well, they had one of the better records in baseball. Obviously, they kind of disappointed. Were disappointed when they played the Dodgers, but there's a team that could be back in the top of the National League again this year.
yeah, I mean they're playing great right now. Like you said, they ran to a tough Dodgers team last year that was on fire, and Dodgers went all the way to the championship to win it. They won back to back. So you won to the champs. You lost to the champs, so it's all right. It happens. But like I said, they're coming back, and I think the Giants might be sellers, but I hope not. I want them to be buyers, and maybe they can buy a couple of starting pitchers would be nice, because that's exactly what they need. Maybe a couple bullpen arms. They need to make some moves. So if they don't, I mean, I really don't want them to be sellers, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. And if they are sellers, Logan Webb, that's a big name that could be on the move. But I think he's a San Fran for life guy. But we'll see. But to keep you updated before I move on to Formula One, currently end of the third, start of the fourth quarter coming up soon. Oklahoma is up 101 to 91 in Game Five. So there's that. But moving on to Formula One, we just had the Canadian Grand Prix. I know, Joe, you don't know much about this, so I'll just ramble on about this. But we had the Canadian Grand Prix, and it was probably the best race so far this year. We had George Russell. We had a sprint. I kind of missed that. I slept through it. We had a sprint. Russell won. I believe Norris was second, and Antonelli was third. But during the race, George Russell, pole position, he started off out the gates. Him and Antonelli for about 20, a little over 20 laps, were battling it out. And I thought sooner or later both of them were going to crash. And unfortunately, George Russell's car gave up on him, and he had to retire his car, and he finished with the DNF. Antonelli ended up taking the win, but if George Russell's car didn't crash, we would have had a Lewis Hamilton win in 2026 because Lewis Hamilton, he was started P5, ended up he was P4 for quite some time. Max Verstappen was P3 until Russell had a DNF, and then they all moved up a spot. And then Hamilton took P2 from Verstappen and finished P2 on the race. Antonelli has a 43-point lead on the championship. He's at 131 points. He won his fourth straight race. And as for Mercedes, I think, this was a huge race. Obviously, Russell looked like he was going to win the race, but I think Mercedes now has to pit Kimi Antonelli as the number one driver because that's what he's seemed to prove so far. But yeah, very interesting week. Charles Leclerc, he was complaining a lot, but he did end up P4. The McLaren ruined their races with their strategy, putting both cars on inters when it was a dry track. But yeah, next race is not this upcoming weekend, but next weekend in Monaco. Should be a good one. Hopefully, the Ferraris end up on top. Um, but yeah, Formula One season it's still young. But now we shouldn't have any more long breaks besides maybe the little summer break that they get. Um, but yeah, so it was good to see a really nice race, a lot of wheel to wheel driving. And it was a race I really enjoyed. It was on Netflix. I was able to watch it.
I have a
But that is
quick.
I
I once since you brought up racing, was it Kyle Busch?
Kyle
Rest
Busch, yes.
in peace, Kyle Busch. Shout out to Kyle Busch and his family. Hope that everything get pulled through because he was young, my age. He was 41 years old. So, rest in peace, Kyle Busch.
Yeah, that was tragic news that came out. Honestly, not too long ago. I want to say 3, 4 days ago. It was very recent news, and it broke the hearts of the racing world. So yes, I'm glad you brought that up because um, when I'm just talking, some things just go in the back of my mind. But yes, rest in peace to Kyle Busch. He'll be remembered forever. But that is all for today. Thank you all for tuning in. It's currently a 12-point game. OKC is up 10 minutes left. I'll probably be finishing watching this. Looks like OKC is gonna take game 5, but who knows? We'll see if Victor Wembanyama has anything left in the tank. But thank you all for tuning in. I'd like to thank my guest, my Uncle Joe, for joining me today. Don't forget episodes every Wednesday. I get post out, get my post game reactions. I've gotten a few of those out this past weekend. Don't know if I'll get those out this weekend. I got a grad party I got to go to. But post outs on the weekends, like I said, episodes every Wednesday. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, and TikTok. Thank you all for tuning in, and until next time, stay ready.
Peace.